Welcome everyone to a new thing we're doing on the Spacetime Taco channel. This is TALKO Tuesday. It's kind of where we're just going to do a little bit more discussion rather than just rapid fire news, what we've been watching, what we've been reading, the stuff like that we normally do. I am joined today by the lovely KimonoJones. Um,
Hello.
she sort of is a new addition to our channel, but a longtime friend, and we appreciate her every time she's around. So before we jump in anything, Kimono, please tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Thank you. I would say I am the cryptid of Spacetime Taco. I love horror, big horror enthusiast. I'm also a nerdlesque dancer. For anybody who doesn't know what nerdlesque is, it's a subgenre of burlesque, which is like the art of striptease. If you've ever heard of like Dita Von Teese or Josephine Baker, that's kind of like a Cliff Notes version. So yeah, I'm very excited to be here. Part of being the cryptid of Spacetime Taco is that I'm almost never here. We are fixing that in 2023.
Often talked about like you're some kind of SCP we keep in the back rooms.
I'm just one of the non-playable characters, but it's okay. It's okay.
Well, you get a full dialogue tree this time. We're adding that in. No, but it is good to have you here. I believe you have a whole Nerdless show coming up later this month, right?
I do. So my friend Maki Roll, who is a cosplayer, performer, producer extraordinaire, we have a monthly show where we are at a brewery in DC. Some of the Spacetime crew has been there. They've had a great time. If you're in the DC area, you should come see us. Our next show is Valentine's theme. It's called Geek Classique, so it's kind of like a sophisticated side of nerddom, and that's on February 25th, and
Yeah.
it's a Saturday.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll just tell everybody that if you're interested, get your tickets now
Yes,
because
true. We sell out fast.
I think I
We've
got
done 6 or 7 shows so far, so
yeah. I think I got maybe like the third to last VIP ticket for the show.
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
um,
Sometimes our VIP sells out before we can even announce kind of like who's going to be in the show. So yes,
mhm. Well, that's good.
Nate is very right.
Yeah.
Please get tickets early.
Get tickets early, show up, drink cool beer, watch people take off their clothes, and get some really tasty tacos as well. Um, but anyway, I kind of lined up a grouping of discussion topics for this stream for tonight. There's been a lot going on in just the nerd community. A lot of discussions have taken place surrounding different things.
Hmm.
Some of this stuff is going to be focusing on a bit of controversy. Some of it not so much. Some of it's just going to be weird, nerdy bullshit that we're into. Um, but excuse me, Jesus Christ, breathing is important. Um, But anyway, we're just going to start off with the big one, sort of just dropping the nuke right away, because it's one that I've been
That's
in
why you're cuffing me.
yeah. Well, no, I've been in a lot of discussions about it. Some of them great, some of them not so great. My Facebook block list is full of people right now,
Ooh,
specifically because of this. But what we're going to start off with is talking about an upcoming game that a lot of people are excited for and some are not so excited for, and that's Hogwarts Legacy. Um, it is,
hey.
it is the next big Harry Potter game. Nothing has really come out like this for Harry Potter in the gaming world before. It's not really focused on like the main Harry Potter plotline or anything like that. I'll get into the plot of this game a little bit later because to me it's kind of honestly disgusting. I don't really have another way of putting that. Um, but we'll talk about one part of the controversy, which is sort of course, the creator of the Harry Potter universe, J.K. Rowling herself, her connection to this title, and then the second part of the controversy, which is the game itself and the plot that it kind of drives your character on, which was leaked, like all Harry Potter things eventually are. um, so to start with, we know who J.K. Rowling is. Of course, she wrote the Harry Potter books and made millions, billions, gazillions of dollars on the Harry Potter franchise. She's basically paid royalties for anything with a Harry Potter name on it, right? Um,
Mm, yeah, I have so many thoughts.
yeah. So, I mean, just to get it out of the way, I think the issue we mutually share regarding this person is her extremely controversial takes surrounding the trans community. Now, you as a
Mhm.
nerdlesque professor, or nerdless, I'm sorry, why did I
I'll
say
take
professor?
professor. I'll
Okay,
take professor.
professor. As a performer, you work with a lot of people in the LGBTQIA plus space. A lot of them are
Mhm.
performers at the shows that you participate in. Um,
Mhm.
and so I'm sure you've at least had one or two discussions with these people about their experiences being trans or non-binary or whatever it may be. I've had those discussions with friends of mine. Um, just to sort of move this topic along here, I've talked with those people personally, specifically about this game and sort of what they think of it, the reaction to it, and J.K. Rowling's connection to it. For the people who don't know, J.K. Rowling actually didn't have any real hand in the development of the game itself. But again, she is being paid royalties because this is a
Don't
Harry Potter
care.
game.
Still
Yeah.
counts.
So that's kind of what we're at now. Before I just start ranting about all the things I've heard, I kind of want to get your take on it.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
just gonna rant too. So I will start the rant. Um, and you can like bring it on home with the 1-2 because she deserves it. Um, I think J.K. Rowling's existence, especially right now, is so unfortunate because I used to love Harry Potter, especially when it first came out. Um, I was like the kid buying the books and seeing the premieres in real time. And this game, like an open world game where you can be your own wizard, is like what we should have gotten like 10, 15 years ago. And it's so too little too late because she burned every like haystack of goodwill that's ever been. It's
hmm,
just so unfortunate that this kind of game came out at this time. Cause yeah. And that it's still and that it's still happening because to me, I personally stopped being interested in Harry Potter before J.K. Rowling revealed herself to be a trash fire of a human being. I was never into any of the extension universes, so I had already let it go.
hmm,
I also don't understand the people that can't let it go, the people our age, because I don't think anybody below us is that hard invested. Maybe you, I would love to hear about your internet trenches, to be honest, because I want to know like what the age range of people are that are actually going to play the
yeah.
game and that are still super excited for it to come out because even on its face it's got like a wah, wah attached to it. Like
Yeah. Well,
even the most base player would be like, "Oh, this is that game with all that like stuff attached to it." I don't.
hmm,
But yes,
well,
I would love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, for me, my biggest discussion at this actually interestingly took place in a sort of blurred focused group on Facebook, and I just kind of went with it and posted my hot take after seeing some of the discussions around, which is like, it really doesn't make sense to me that people are even excited that this game is coming out. Um,
Me
I,
neither.
I get it in one sense. Like, I can understand, like, okay, if you're like a big Harry Potter fan and have been there since the beginning, and you're excited to explore the Harry Potter universe in a new way, okay, you can get that excitement out of it, but that's got to be tempered with the reality of the situation, right? Which is like, I, I'll put it in a parallel this way because I mentioned this in our podcast before. I love Rurouni Kenshin, right? Kenshin is a really good anime and manga. The creator of Kenshin is a convicted pedophile. That's
Nuh-uh.
yeah.
What?
So, you know, you have to, or even if I bring up something more recent, like one of my favorite movies of all time is Baby Driver. Love Baby Driver. Kevin Spacey's in that movie. I don't think I have to say a lot about that.
Big
But
oof.
but Ansel Elgort is the main character of that movie, and for those of you who don't keep up on him because he's a small-time actor, a number of years ago he was accused of a lot of sexual assault.
I
Um,
never liked him. Thank you for
so
justifying my third eye. Never liked him.
yeah, so it's like I know that I can personally love this movie, but I temper my love of that movie with that reality behind it, right? Where when I'm
Hmm.
watching that movie, I am not celebrating the people in that movie. I am enjoying the film for what it is in that moment. And that may be the case with some people who plan on playing Hogwarts Legacy, but at the same time, I realize that me going and watching a copy of Baby Driver also isn't me handing money to Kevin Spacey or Ansel Elgort, right? Is that movie's done with.
Yeah.
There is no more to be sold of that film unless you get like a $5 copy of it digitally somewhere. Or, you just do what I do. You sail the seven seas and pray you don't get a virus at the end of the day. Um, but
That's the moral way to do it, I think.
oh yeah, but that's where my discussion of this started. A lot of people were like, well, I mean, there's been several takes on this. I'll get some of the really dumb stuff out of the way first. The first,
Yes.
the first one that I hate the most here is that you mentioned to someone that J.K. Rowling is a transphobe. Like, she's not like ashamed of that fact. She's very proud of the fact that she is transphobic.
Hmm.
And pretty much takes every opportunity to be. I mean, you can check her Twitter feed. Just hop on over to the GLAAD website, GLAAD, for those who don't know. Hop over to the GLAAD website, and you can just see a list of the stuff she said in context about trans people. um, and none of it is nice. None of it is
And
endearing.
continues to say, like you
Oh
said.
yes, continues to say. So the first like big take that I have an issue with is this idea that people will say, well, I don't know she's a transphobe. I've never heard anything she said transphobic or anything like that. The material's not in her books and so on and so forth. It's like, well, you can go and see this for yourself, right? I mean, it took me like a couple seconds on Google to find that GLAAD page. Like,
Yeah.
it's not difficult.
I was
Uh,
gonna say, when they say they've never heard her say anything transphobic, do they mean standing in the same room with her?
I mean, that's kind
Because
of
sure, at that caveat, if we're gonna do that, then yeah, I've never heard her
yeah.
say
I
anything
mean,
transphobic either.
that's kind of where I'm at. Is like you're either just completely ignorant of the fact that she's ever said any of this stuff because you don't keep up with that kind of news, or you're just being disingenuous at a certain point. Like, there's
Yeah.
really no other way to go about that. The second really, really dumb one is this idea that all this controversy surrounding the game is getting more people to buy it. Um,
That's dumb.
I mean, that is what it is. If you're one of those people who like proudly says that, like, I'm buying this game specifically to go out and like piss people off, one, you're dumb because you're not buying a game because you actually plan on enjoying that game. You're just wasting money on a product to spite other people. And two, you're just admitting that you're kind of in league with J.K. Rowling. Like, you're admitting to me that you don't really give a shit about what trans people think. You just want your product. You just want to consume that thing. It's like people who like talk about eating Chick-fil-A all the time is like I can show them like, hey, the owners of this company are like legitimately scummy people who do scummy shit. But like
Yeah.
their excuse is like, but the chicken good though. So
But chicken good.
yes.
My friend used to say that the owner of Chick-fil-A looked like a chicken nugget. She wasn't wrong.
Jesus. But I mean, I put it to people this way because I like doing some comedy when I'm trying to make these arguments where I said, like, if Chick-fil-A, like, said to you, like, we close on Sunday because we use that time to, like, put babies in our ovens, people would still go to Chick-fil-A. Like, even if they
They'd be like,
publicly came
"What?
out and said
No,
that.
he didn't mean that. That was a
Yeah.
joke."
Well, even if they weren't
They're
like
not
that,
real
like
babies.
if they were showing like video evidence of this happening at Chick-fil-A, their excuse would just literally be like, "But they have good chicken, so that's why I'm
That's
going."
true. That's true. Some people don't, yeah. Some people don't need much else besides this is just what I want.
Yes, and so
But you
that,
have to then look at what that says about you.
yeah, and I think people honestly just don't care what it says about them. Like, there are people out there who are just totally okay with being, labeled transphobes and whatnot. I mean, we've dealt with
Doesn't make
people
sense.
like fucking like Matt Walsh, um, and Ben Shapiro and all those people for a long, long
Hmm.
time in the social media space, and they honestly do not care. They won't publicly come out and say like, "Hey, I am a transphobe and I hope all trans people die and I hate them and so on and so forth," because they'll lose their jobs because of that kind of shit. Um, but they really don't care of being accused of that because they're proud of the fact that they are that way. Like,
True.
that's just the kind of people they are. Um, and then the third sort of really, really stupid one is this idea that, well, J.K. Rowling already has billions and billions of dollars, boycotting the game or protesting her won't really affect her bottom line, and so on and so forth. And what people are missing here, and Chris is right, the game is really not even that good, but what people are missing here is that it really doesn't matter who has all that money or all that power, right? Is J.K. Rowling has pretty much publicly admitted at this point that every dollar in royalties she gets, she uses that kind of as a way of justifying her stance. She uses
Yeah,
that as a way of saying people agree with me because they're willing to still give me money.
exactly.
And so, oh, I meant the chicken. Before I heard the game, I was isn't that good.
It's like what?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It
But
is just like
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, no, I mean that's okay. I mean, have you come across any of those kinds of takes with people you've spoken with, or maybe you've heard something different?
Honestly, thankfully, no. My Twitter is curated correctly. That's what I've learned because I've only seen people being like, "There's no way anybody's still justifying buying this game," and I was like, "Where are these people?" That's why I was asking you, like,
Mm-hmm.
what are they? How old are these people that are still choosing the J.K. Rowling hill to die on? Like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? And I thought it was super weird because I thought the game was out already
Mm-hmm.
because we had already talked about this. Like, she's full of shit. Don't buy this game. And then it came up again, and I was like, "What is happening?" And I realized now the game is coming out.
Oh yeah. Well, part of it
Uh,
is like the games media hype train, right? Is anytime like a new release that gains some traction comes out, they're gonna hype it up as much as possible. And so, like, there have been hundreds of articles posted in like just the last week from games media about specifically Hogwarts Legacy, and it's things from like previews of the game to everything else, to like everything else about it surrounding it. Whatever gets clicks basically is what they're gonna post, right? Um, so yes, the Ben Shapiro's.
Ben Shapiro's, you're right, JB.
But beyond that, there's a fourth secret dumb take that applies to us
Ooh,
specifically.
a
Um,
secret one.
so it applies to us specifically because we've played games with character creators in them before, and the one thing that I always struggle with in these character creators is a lack of black hairstyles in them. Just
Mm-hmm.
perfectly honest. Like I played
Black
Ubisoft
hairstyles,
games.
black features, black skin tones that aren't gray or green.
Yeah. So it's hard out here for us to like make characters that are even representative of us as
Mm-hmm.
people. Um, and one of the things that's to the game's credit is that they showed off a lot of the character creation stuff, and it does have like proper darker skin tones. It does have proper like 4C hairstyles in it and stuff like that. Um, and like people are using that as kind of an excuse to on board with this
Mm-mm.
game.
Too little, too late.
Yeah.
JoJo.mp3. No, sorry. Sorry. Too late. You could, again, where were you 10 or 15 years ago before? We could have all enjoyed this
Mm-hmm.
and then had it ruined. I don't know.
No, I
Now
just
nobody gets to enjoy it.
yeah. To me, it's just that is kind of just an excuse being put in the way. Um,
That's a really
I mean, if I want more black hairstyles in games and I want more black representation, or just just person of color representation in these games, like I know that I can like just write an open letter to like a game dev or a publisher or something like that and just say like, hey, it'd just be really nice if you do this, you know.
You know what? And I saw this tweet today, and it's so relevant. Intersectionality just be kicking y'all's asses out here because black trans people exist.
Mm-hmm.
And to throw them under the bus
Oh yeah.
for your afro that isn't shaped like a sphere
Mm-hmm.
says a lot. You can get that in other games.
Yeah.
Play Sims and dress like a wizard. Boom.
Well, there you go. Play the thousands of other games out there where you can be a spellcaster of some sort. Like,
Oh my gosh.
it doesn't have to be limited to specifically a Harry Potter thing. Um,
Yeah, go be an alien.
but beyond that, I want to talk about some of the stuff that came up in game previews, um, and a lot of stuff that was leaked about the plot. Um, I saw this hilarious sort of image macro someone had sent on Facebook where they basically call this game the Blood Libel Wizard game. um, and they call it that because the plot very much involves in the Harry Potter universe you have different creatures, and one of the more humanoid creatures in the game are goblins. And if anyone
Mm.
remembers, I forget what Harry Potter movie or book they were in, but goblins like ran the bank in that universe, right? They're like they do all the transactional stuff and everything like that, and there's really not a nice way to put this. So the goblins in Harry Potter, especially the way they're portrayed in the movie, are basically the Jewish people of the Harry Potter world.
Oh no, we went there. Oh
Yes.
no, I didn't know what you were gonna say.
Well, the thing is people are going to be like, oh, well, that's just your opinion of it. And it's like, no, J.K. Rowling has pretty much confirmed that this is the case.
Okay, wow, I could see. People suck. I could see that,
And
unfortunately.
so in Hogwarts Legacy, you like go to Hogwarts, you're like this extremely gifted student and stuff like that, and you basically get recruited by something that's like adjacent to the Ministry of Magic to go out and more or less hunt goblins. Like that's your job.
Hunt them to do what and do what with them?
Well, pretty much anything you want because this game it has come out already. This is one of those sort of big headlines that come out. This game has no penalty for using any of the unforgivable curses in it. So you can
Mm,
use a Crucio and a Vada Kedavra, whatever you want to use, and the game will not penalize you for that in any way. So you could just straight up just go out there and murder people, and the game's like, okay, cool.
okay. I don't want to play your little wizard power fantasy game.
I mean,
Ugh.
it's Wizard Gestapo is what you become in this
What's the
game.
point of the wizard rule? What's the point of the ministry? I thought they were the police. I
Yeah.
actually don't know what they did. I don't remember. It's been a long time.
I mean, at least how they're portrayed in the movie, they're less the police and actually like the Wizard Gestapo in the movies. So
Oh my
before the
gosh.
Death Eaters show up and become like the real Wizard Gestapo. Um,
Well, I mean, what morality can this game really stand on at this point?
I don't know. I mean, games have always had a difficult time dealing with morality. I go back to Mass Effect, which is like my favorite gaming franchise of all time. Yes, all wizards are bastards,
Yes,
exactly.
AWAB.
But Mass Effect had a hard time dealing with this because the morality system in it was basically binary. It's like do a good thing, get a good point; do a bad thing, get a bad point. Um,
Hmm.
and then those good points and bad points didn't even matter by the time you got to the end of the main trilogy because the ending was completely botched. But a lot of games have this kind of morality system. Fable is probably the one that popularized it.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
and at the end of Fable 1, like all your choices up to that point didn't necessarily matter because it's just do you want the uber powerful sword and so you stab your sister with it, or are you willing to give up this sword to save your sister and be good? And then they just retcon that with the expansion where it's like, oh, you didn't take the evil powerful sword? Well, here's the good uber powerful sword. um, so that was your entire journey through Fable, and games have always had a problem dealing with that kind of morality. As far as I know from Hogwarts Legacy, there probably isn't even a morality system built in. The game is just simply not going to care.
There wouldn't be. Yeah, why would there be?
It's just going to let you do whatever you want to do and pretty much get away with it. That remains to be seen. This is all alleged. I'm not saying that's what the game is, but that's at least what the previews lead me to believe of this game. Besides that, the gameplay footage that come out, a lot of the pre-rendered stuff, of course, looks beautiful and wonderful. Pre-rendered footage always does. But the actual gameplay I've seen,
Meh,
jank as fuck. like,
meh.
like, I won't say it's like cyberpunk levels of jank when that game launched, but it's pretty lackluster. and I played Cyberpunk at launch, and I had a
Oh,
blast. That game was a fucking comedy when it was buggy.
oh my gosh.
Just random NPCs popping out of nowhere, people T-posing in the
That's
middle of the street.
unforgivable. I saw people falling to nowhere
Yep.
in that
Falling to
game.
nowhere, you summoning cars and them just exploding when they show up. Highways that clipped into other highways, so they were just completely undrivable. That was all fun. but yeah, I mean, the game to me just doesn't look like it's anything super special, honestly. And I mean,
No.
pre-orders for this game have already gone up. Some places even discounted pre-orders to make sure they get enough to sort of fight against that controversy. Um, but I mean, again, this game just looks like it's. I mean,
It's
it's mediocre.
yeah, it's really not worth the gross like reaching you have to do past all of the transphobia
Oh yeah.
to justify wanting to get it. I can't believe people were like, but they did the hair right. Come on, guys. Like we can find enough games.
I don't know.
Ugh.
I think the one thing that does irk me the most though is like I'm talking to people who I know exist in communities where trans people participate or even have like trans friends or even family members and they're like, "Well, I still need to get this game." And it's like, "Okay, so you're just tossing all
Mm,
those people you know in the trash basically and telling them that they don't deserve respect because you need to consume product." Um, to me, that's just if I was a trans person hearing that, that would be someone just like spitting in my face. Honestly, I would.
it's like your morals are there up until it's time for you to make a choice you don't want to make. And then
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's all out the window.
Well, I don't know. Well, before we move on to anything else, was there anything more you want to say about this particular topic, the game, J.K.
Uh
Rowling?
no, Wizard Lady sucks. Um I will be oh my gosh, why am I flashing?
Why are you flashing? You're not flashing on stream though.
Am I not? When I'm looking at the stream, it says I see myself flashing. That was so weird. You see her try to put a curse on me? Anyway, I will be so glad when all of this like talk of this game is over and she's back to being like in her little hidey hole of
hmm
obscurity. What about you?
I mean, I kind of feel the same way. It sucks because I know how politically active she is as far as like donations and campaigning. There's a lot of shit going on in the UK right now concerning like laws surrounding trans people, and it's not good. It all sucks. Um,
That's
th-
scary.
there's like the problem with the UK is they don't exactly mimic American politics, but they have a big right wing in the UK, mostly the Tories, and they hate trans people about as much as American Republicans do. Um, they just,
Yeah, they're like our they're like our cousins.
yeah. I mean, if they can find an excuse to shit on trans people, they will find an excuse to shit on trans people. And they honestly just borrow stuff from American Republicans a lot. The whole, controversy around things like drag queens and trans predators and so on and so forth and that kind of shit. It's like, are you really gonna submit an entire community to that kind of stuff?
Uh, just nonsensical, yeah, just nonsensical, willful ignorance.
Well, we're gonna move on from that topic, because
Yeah, boo!
yeah, that
That
was
is the general consensus.
exactly, and it's a rather heavy thing to talk about. The sad thing is I don't have anybody who's like out and trans who was willing to join us today to really talk about this. That would have kind of been the cherry on top for me, but um,
Mhm.
we may revisit this with someone in the future, probably after the game is released, so we can really see what it looks like.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not
that'd be
going to.
awesome.
I'm not going to fucking play it, but I'm pretty sure plenty of people are going to play it, and I'll be able to watch them playing it. um, but moving on to something a little bit more lighthearted, something that you were most excited to talk about, um, were video game adaptations and things
Yeah,
like
adaptations period. Let's do it.
yes. So you had mentioned something about you saw a book adaptation that went out and bought the book. So what is this? What is this thing that got you so excited to buy this book?
Yes, well, first of all, I'm a book nerd, so if I go out and see a movie and I find out that it's based off of a book or a short story, I'm usually going to buy it. I may or may not get all the way through it, but I have it if I ever do. But I saw A Knock at the Cabin, which is the new M. Night Shyamalan movie adaptation of a book called The Cabin at the End of the World. And I'm like 10 pages into the book. So far, it seems kind of just like a direct remake, or adaptation. The book obviously is already going into way more detail, which is something that I love about books, but we'll talk about that overall. Um, and the movie was good, could have been great.
Hmm.
The acting carried. It was phenomenal. M. Night Shyamalan is his reputation varies with some people.
We could talk about Avatar if you want to talk about Avatar.
so so yeah, I am very aware because I'm a semi apologist because some things can't be forgiven. We're not delusional. Avatar will never be forgiven. He has no excuse ever. Period. Ever. I think that should always be qualified when talking about him, especially when like defending him in any way. Because there's no defense there. We need to start there. But no, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. M. Night was in his creative bag. He really, I think, was getting artsy with it in terms of the cinematography and all of that stuff. But like I said, the movie was good. It was pretty good. It could have been great, but it wasn't. And I think the part that the great missing piece is the book. Everything that you get, all of the richness and all of the inner monologue and all of the better timed like pacing and slower pacing and all of those things that you can get out of a book. I feel like the movie was missing that. So it was just kind of like an abridged version of the book. But we might have to do a follow up because like I said, I'm literally only 10 pages in so far. But
Well,
it's really good.
well, that's good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. What stands out to me here is it seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, it seems like your take so far is that the movie would have been better if it stuck more closely to the book itself.
Or if it just had the opportunity, I guess, to get more character insight and development like a book does.
Hmm.
The movie really lays out, I guess, much more linearly. Look at me assuming. We'll find out. We're going to do a follow up in 6 months when I've finished this book. Um, but it seems like the movie, because movies in translation, they have to be kind of like a much more linear or a much more direct version of what's going on. So I think that that's what's going to be happening. But the book is going to be able to get into the stuff that you were curious about in the movie or the questions that you might have had coming out of the movie. Plus, I'm really interested to see what they changed
Mm.
because if I know M, he changed something. And I wonder what he changed, and I also wonder how much he could change. But
Mm.
that's just like adaptations overall. I'm gonna segue into like adaptations, period. Because you mentioned video game adaptations, and I'm guessing you were specifically talking about The Last of Us, but we can also expand
Mm-hmm.
into bigger.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was kind of about The Last of Us. I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't watched a single episode of the show yet. Um,
Nate!
so I don't
Chris,
have.
where are you?
Hashtag no spoilers. Yeah. Well,
We need
no.
a watch party right now. You need to catch up.
We can't spoil it. I don't have an HBO subscription. I probably never will.
That's
Um,
fair.
I will
We'll
watch.
find you one.
I'll watch The Last of Us through other means and air quotes. But uh, from what I've heard, it's a really good show. Um,
Mhm.
but the a lot of the material that has come out about the show has been really focused on how well it stuck close to the games.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, being a fan of a lot of adaptations of things like the Sonic movies, for example, right? I don't think the Sonic
Huh?
movies. Well, I'm putting it this way: the Sonic movies would not be literally any good if they stuck to the material that was in the Sonic games. Like, and that's just from knowing the little bit I know about the plot of those games, right? I mean, if we go back to like original Sonic games, there really isn't a plot. Sonic run fast, beat up Robot Man. That's the game. Um, but
Chris, mm,
but
that's fair. Yeah. If we're going by the game, that's fair. Yeah. I'm a Sonic nerd, so when I
mhm,
thought Sonic movie, I was like, yeah, Freedom Fighters, but it
mhm.
wasn't. I don't know if it. I actually don't know if it was that because I didn't watch the movie.
Well, no. But if
I
you,
was too hurt by what they tried to do the first time.
I think one of the most plot-heavy Sonic games ever was Sonic and the Black Knight, and the plot for that video game is terrible.
What is that about?
I'll just put it this way. It's basically like your traditional, almost Disney like prince rescuing the damsel story for
I'm
Sonic.
looking this up.
Um, Sonic has to kiss a human girl in this video
This is
game.
that one. I was looking for her. That's where I was gonna be like, is this the one where he has a human girlfriend?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And she's like, she's so Final Fantasied up.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
man.
It is not good. And so where I'm getting at here is that if the movies like Sonic and Sonic 2 had followed the plot of these video games, I'm sure there are a few gems out there, but I have a feeling they could very easily pick the wrong one and it wouldn't be as good. I mean, Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. Jim Carrey's fucking goofy to begin with, but him as sort of this new, goofier Dr. Robotnik who's kind of a mad scientist, almost like the Elon Musk of his universe.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it works for a movie that's trying to sort of bring Sonic down to like a relatable level. Um,
True. You've got to have fun. I think, yeah, you've got to have fun with a Sonic movie
oh yeah,
if you're gonna do it.
and Idris Elba as Knuckles in Sonic 2, fucking hilarious. But
I think the internet dreams that. That's one of the few things the internet got right.
yes, um, I mean the internet got it right on the first one, is because we saw like the original design for Sonic in the first
You're
movie.
right that yeah, the internet's not playing about this Sonic movie. They were like, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna do it right.
We collectively cyberbullied a production company into changing a whole design.
I
But
refuse to. I honestly, you guys now know how I hold grudges because we had that Zack Snyder conversation.
mhm.
I held a grudge. I was like, how dare you come at me with this poor first draft? I'm
Oh
not
yes.
watching this movie.
But I mean, the history of things like video game movies or even book movies. I mean, honestly, if we go back just like a decade or two ago, not that great. um, Books had a better run than video games for sure. I
Hmm.
think the film community understood, hey, I can sit down and read a book and get the plot of it. But when it came to video games, like Martin Scorsese or you know Steven Spielberg weren't going to sit down and like play like Legend of Zelda or Mario for like 12 hours to find out what those games were about. um, and so those video game adaptations suffer. I mean, we can go back to the original Super Brothers movie and realize like that movie has nothing to do with the video games except that some characters share names with some of the characters in the game.
And I hate to say it, but it's not terrible.
No, it's not. It's a
Like,
highly enjoyable movie, but
yeah, like as far as adaptations go, with the route that they decided to go with just going by pure names, it could have been worse.
oh yeah.
And they had fun with it. I think that's the big thing is they've got to have some level of a sense of humor.
Hmm.
If the video game calls for it, because I also think I wonder how many more video games would benefit from the TV style like The Witcher.
Hmm. Well, I think The Witcher specifically benefits from that because if you take a game that's lore heavy, like
Mm-hmm.
The Witcher is very lore heavy. I mean, I don't think people
True.
realize like The Witcher 3 is The Witcher 3 for a reason. There are two games that precede that, and that just focuses on Geralt's story. Mind you, there's a whole bunch of Witcher books out there that focus on a lot of other characters and a lot of other adventures that happen in this universe, and you have these major events that take place in that universe that make the Witcher universe what it is when you play it in a video game. A TV format is great for that because you get so much more time to explore all that stuff, right? Whereas in a movie, you're kind of limited to this runtime and you have to fit everything in that. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think it definitely depends on the game. Like, and maybe I'm just trying to talk up a BioShock TV show. I think that's ultimately what I'm
I
what
would
I'm fishing for.
I would love a BioShock TV show. Um, I know people are probably going to want to take place in Rapture. I honestly would want a BioShock TV show to be in Columbia. Um,
Hmm.
but that's just my personal bias because I love the design of Columbia so much. Um,
I'll take multiple seasons.
but yeah, so Chris is right. We do have a Fallout series coming to Amazon
What?
eventually.
Really?
Yep. So
Huh. Okay.
there's
Wasteland. All right.
yep,
Dig it.
there's a Fallout series coming to Amazon, and it turns out that Henry Cavill of all people is a big Warhammer 40k nerd, and so he is working with Amazon on a Warhammer 40k series as well.
This I did hear.
Hmm. And so
Oh, poor Henry Cavill. He's been on a nerd ride.
he has been. I mean, we all watched him build a PC. I watched him
Rip.
personally sit down and paint minis before. Um, I mean, this is a guy who's like an A-list actor now who has his own 40k army. So, um,
And he got the opportunity to like nerd out on
hmm.
on the biggest blockbustery scale,
Oh yeah.
which is so cool.
I mean, it's weird for people like me who sort of grew up when like being a nerd was on the fringes of everything, and now it's just mainstreamed into everything. I mean, the biggest TV shows that we have are now video game adaptations, or just adaptations of stuff that fell in nerd culture for a long time, like Star Wars. I mean, The Mandalorian is a hugely
You're
popular
right.
show.
Yeah.
And speaking of Star Wars, we'll talk about probably the worst adaptation of all time,
Oh God.
which
What are you about to
was
say?
which was I can't even remember the subtitle of this movie now because I do not like it that much. It's the third movie in the sequel trilogy of Star Wars.
Oh. Oh, you're talking about the rise of Skywalker.
Yes, The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, yeah, people openly booed that movie in the theater, and it was
Mhm.
just, um, that was, yeah.
Well, there's a reason I call it the worst adaptation of all time, and people may not know that it's actually an adaptation. That's because Kathleen Kennedy, who was the lead producer on all the Star Wars movies at that time, had publicly came out in an interview and said, like, look, we don't have a bunch of source material to pull from. We're starting fresh from Star Wars, so on and so forth. She basically said we have nothing. We're starting from zero.
She said we have no source material to pull
Exactly.
from.
And at this
I would like
time,
to take her to a library.
well, when Disney had bought Star Wars, there was kind of a deal put on the table where it's like, okay, you have to keep these things as Star Wars canon. Like it's got to be the original trilogy, and the prequel trilogy has to be canon because that's George Lucas's work, right? You can't expunge that from the canon. Everything else, though, was shifted from what was used to be called the Star Wars Extended Universe to what is now called Star Wars Legends. So they're kind of treating those older stories as kind of fables. Anything from like Force
Dare you
Awakens.
decide what we are?
Yeah. Well, it's like the Force Awakens games, not canon. And I don't even believe they were canon before that. But things like the stories of people like Jada Skywalker, for example, one of Luke's daughters, expunged from canon. All the old Jedi tales, all that stuff just completely wiped away and done away with. Um, but on watching The Rise of Skywalker, I noticed something while watching that movie. They used so much material from that extended universe as plot points for that film.
Did they really?
Yes. So the idea that Palpatine didn't die in Revenge of the Sith or whatever that movie is, I blank on all the subtitles of these movies. There's too fucking many of them. Episode 6. That he didn't die in that is part of the extended universe because he had clones of himself made, and so through Sith sauce,
Real?
yeah.
Close real?
Well, it was done much better in that timeline because it wasn't like he made like botched clones like Snoke was. He made actual full-bodied like clones of himself using cloning technology that existed in the Clone Wars from Kamino. So he made these full clones of himself, and the way this worked is every time one of his bodies died, through this sort of Sith sorcery where he kind of bound his soul, and this is like real in Star Wars, a lot of Sith have done this, is he's able to transfer his entire soul into a new body.
Okay.
And thus Palpatine becomes like this immortal emperor of the Sith. He can just never be destroyed until his soul is destroyed in some way. And so they take that in Rise of the Skywalker and they just say, oh, that guy Snoke who you were all curious about, especially in that first movie where he was just kind of this mysterious figure you didn't know anything about. Well, he's just a clone. He's just a bunch of botched clones of Palpatine.
He's a big old Muppet, and
Yes,
he somehow got smaller.
exactly. The idea of things like the Last Order and all these Star Destroyers with, Death Star level weapons on them, the way lightsabers even work in this movie, Leia getting Jedi training, that stuff, all ripped out of the EU. It's basically one director's giant ass fanfic of Star Wars.
Oh, but they don't have source material. I've never heard anything good about this Kathleen person.
Well, neither have I, honestly, and I don't know. I won't say anything about her character. I will say, as a producer, she has just utterly failed Star Wars. um,
Yeah.
when the franchise was turned over to people who actually care about Star Wars a lot and want to make good Star Wars content, like Favreau, like Filoni, they make good stuff. Like I said, Mandalorian is one of the most popular TV shows out there. We had Bad Batch, which comes out. We've had Tales of the Jedi, which is, even though it's a bunch of animated shorts, is really fucking good and gives you backstory on a lot of characters. We have Andor.
Andor,
Amazing.
JB, write it down. It's on our list.
So we have all this really good stuff now coming out about Star Wars, and there's kind of been this sort of discussion going on in the community of like, do we decanonize that sequel trilogy now to start over?
Honestly, I feel like we could collectively just leave it where it is. We can put it in a box and we can ship it off into its own space. And then we can keep going.
Yes, but
And take John Boyega with us and just put him in something else.
John Boyega was my boy in the first movie.
Finn was robbed. We won't get started because I
No.
will just start screaming.
Well, I will get started because the marketing material for that movie was so fucking misleading to the point of
What it
absurdity.
could have been, what they were promising us, and what we got. I am so insulted.
Are you
Oh,
telling me that the story of a stormtrooper who has a moral conundrum eventually becoming a Jedi wouldn't be better than random white girl from Tatooine 2.0 just magically having Jedi powers?
nobody.
Like, and even in The Last Jedi, like that idea that she was a nobody, that she came from nowhere and nothing, and so on and so forth, that was a better idea than what they did in the third movie,
That's
right?
true. I didn't even hate that.
Like, at least that was someone saying, okay, Star Wars has to evolve past what it was, and then they just undid all that shit. And Finn got done so fucking dirty because of it. He just got relegated to a background
He
character.
literally 85% of his dialogue was like Ray. It was
Oh,
just
yes.
Ray. And yeah, what they the first like 10 minutes of the first movie promised me way more than I got.
Yes. And, I mean, I don't know, man. It's so fucking bad. But that being said, there are good adaptations of stuff out there that we do
Yeah.
get. Um, I mean, Chris hypes up the Angry Birds movie every chance he gets. He's already done it in
Yeah,
chat.
I saw him talking that bullshit earlier.
um, I like the Sonic movies. I won't lie; they're just fun entertainment. They're like good
I
popcorn
can see that.
movies.
Yeah, I
Um,
can see that.
and one of, I guess we can kind of call this an adaptation that's come out recently is Trigun Stampede. He says that's not bullshit. um, so Trigun Stampede is sort of the retelling of the Trigun story from a new
Mm,
perspective entirely. Won't spoil anything about it. We talked about it a bit on podcast, but for those of you who haven't watched it, I get maybe some people have gripes against CG anime. This is probably the best looking CG anime to ever come out. Just point fucking
okay.
blank. Um, but Trigun Stampede is really fucking good, even though it's an adaptation of an original story. Mind you, Trigun is a classic. It'll probably never die, but
Yeah, I love to try good. Maybe I'll check it out.
yeah, I mean, if you like the original Trigun, Trigun Stampede hits sort of all the right notes there. They do some character redesigns here and there, but they're not bad character redesigns at all. Zazie the Beast looks fucking fantastic in Stampede. um, but yeah, just a really good show and a good adaptation of some original source material we got. Um,
Mhm.
and just to cap it off here, I'll talk about probably one of the two. I guess one is infamous and one is famous adaptations of all time, and those are the two Full
Ooh.
Metal Alchemist animes, right?
Uh,
So we got the original Full Metal Alchemist anime, which ran in time with the weekly release of the manga as it came out, and because they got ahead of the manga, they didn't have to put a bunch of bullshit into the anime. um, they changed a lot of characters. They kind of just made up a plot as they went, and I don't think anyone likes that as much as the second adaptation, which was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which came
Oof,
out
yeah.
after the manga was
Brotherhood is a
finished and
legend.
followed the manga pretty much to a T. um, I don't, I don't know if there's more anime adaptations like that. Um, I loved FMA until I saw Brotherhood.
I remember, so I'm just gonna go ahead and date myself. We're all elder millennials or whatever the fuck they decided to call us. I remember when they debuted Full Metal Alchemist at Otakon or Brotherhood, the trailer for Brotherhood at Otakon, and that room was so packed and people were so fucking hyped. And yeah, I think that's probably the best, I guess, remake, re-envisioning, start over, reboot, reset, like sequel, whatever that exists for anime, if there are that many, I'm sure there are that many. There are millions of anime out there.
Hmm.
But yeah, Brotherhood, yeah. And it's so funny because JB and I are somewhere in the middle of Brotherhood, and I
Hmm.
distinctly remember a third of the way through being like, "Damn, we're already here."
Hmm. No, no, it's
What
super
do you
fast
mean?
paced.
We've already met this person and this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's kind of to its credit, is it sets up all those major sort of plot beats and the theming and really the world building for you up front, so you don't have to waste time on that later on. There are so many stories out there in movies, books, and anime and manga that all do this, where it's like you get these tidbits of world building as you go, and then you have characters wasting runtime or pages in a book or manga expositing to you what is going on
Mm,
as you're seeing it
yeah.
happen. Um, and that kind of sucks. I can't tell you how many anime I've watched where it's like it'll be like an isekai or fantasy based anime, and the city that it takes place in is literally just called the capital. They don't give it a fucking name. Like it's the only city in the fucking world, so it's just called the capital now. um, but there are better writers out there. One thing I started watching recently. Um, so everyone knows Sword Art Online, and if you've listened to any of our earlier
Oh
podcasts,
my goodness.
how
Talk
much
about infamous.
yeah, how much fucking ire I have for Sword Art Online and Reki Kawahara, who wrote it personally. Um, but there is a spin-off of Sword Art Online that is a full-length anime with one season, and it's called Sword Art Online Alternative, I believe, or Gun Gale Online Alternative. And so, sort of one of the major arcs of the original Sword Art Online is that Kirito gets a new full dive game called Gun Gale Online, which is this honestly really poorly fucking designed like shooter VR MMO. um, but they did a spin-off of that where this woman, she's like a teacher, starts playing this game, and she's like entering a tournament, and she ends up being like one of the best players in it. Won't spoil too much for you, but the point here is that Reki Kawahara didn't fucking write that show, and it is so much better because of it. Like, it is one of the big problems I have with movies or books or anything that really talks about video games is you can tell if the person creating that content has ever actually played a game.
Yes.
Reki Kawahara has not played a fucking video game in his entire life. I swear to God.
Yes.
Like the
Oh,
one
that's
of
funny.
the one of the scenes that gets me in Sword Art Online, and it's so minor, so no one really pays attention to it, is when you see them pull up menus in game, and it's just one nested menu on top of another nested menu. So it's like if you want to use a potion, it's like, okay, bring up the menu, go to items, go to the item box, go to the item wheel, and select potion, and that's how you use one. Like, imagine you actually playing a game and how quickly you would be dead if you had to do that every
Yeah, I was gonna say
time.
that's so. I would hate that. That's so annoying.
So it's just obvious to me that he had no
Oh
real
my gosh.
experience when he came and made this. On top of that, it was a game which in canon released to like 40,000 people as a limited release. Like, I'm sorry, if your game sold 40,000 copies, your game fucking failed.
Yeah, 40,000. Is it a limited edition?
Like, there are games that have like 200 players active on Steam that are doing better than Sword Art Online ever would. But I don't know. I mean, before I wrap it up here, were there any more things you wanted to go over considering adaptations, or maybe anything that you liked or didn't like about stuff that came out?
Well, watch The Last of Us.
Hmm.
So that we can talk about it. Um, I think overall adaptations, everybody has their own like idea of if they want it to be a direct shot for shot adaptation, if they want people to take it in a whole new direction. I think there's a balance for reverence for and just like paying attention to the source material and putting your own sort of uniqueness onto it if the situation calls for it, because there are some adaptations that are like this is just straight up an adaptation and that's it, but I think there can be a balance. I don't know how often that balance is really achieved. It's gotten way better, but yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, for me, from what I've heard of The Last of Us, is, a lot of it may not have to do with the game, but it's still a good show overall.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's a credit to the writers, the actors, and the directors of this show. Is for me one thing that I hate seeing in an adaptation is a shot-for-shot remake of something. I cannot fucking stand that.
Interesting. Okay, because some people are like, it must be a direct, yeah.
But
Like the people all have to look the same and everything.
if I want to go watch a shot-for-shot remake of The Last of Us, I can already do that. I can go watch someone's YouTube playthrough of The Last of Us, right?
That's basically what I did. I watched JB play The Last of Us, so I just watched the movie.
Exact. So it's like, why bother doing that when you have now a platform and room to expand on that, right? To explore characters more in depth than you would in a video game, or to do a little bit more world building here or there, or to change some elements of world building that in a video game context makes sense, but in a TV context don't make any sense, right? Um,
Yeah, agreed. Some things just don't translate the same.
I mean, The Walking Dead did this both to its benefit and its dismay.
Talk about disappointing. Oh,
hmm
geez.
No, it was certainly disappointing in a lot of ways, especially in its deviations from source material. But I'll just put it this way: I watched up to the moment that Glenn got his head caved in, and then I stopped.
Yeah, it wasn't all bad, I will say. Like some of the characters that weren't there before were like I love Shane. I don't care. Team Shane. Shane was right. I don't care. Um, and like yeah, and like I was really heartbroken over certain deaths. I won't spoil in case anyone hasn't seen it at this point. I don't know. I don't know if you have or not. Read the compendium. Um, I will say I one thing that angers me about adaptations is like you said when it's obvious a person has no clue
hmm
what they're making, what the fans think of it. Like they just threw their name on it and threw characters in it and said this is an adaptation. That's really frustrating because it just is such a disservice to like the source material, to the creators, to the fans that already enjoy it. Just makes me mad, man.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear this kind of stuff because I think we're dealing with more adaptations now than ever of different kinds of material.
Hmm.
Every everything out there that hasn't been on TV is now trying to be on TV or be a movie because that's where the money is, honestly. So that's just the world we live in. We're going to get remakes, we're going to get reboots, we're going to get adaptations of things, and we just have to take it in stride now. I mean, we kind of have to treat every little piece of media that comes out as its own thing and really critique it based on what it does. But so
True.
we've covered like two of the major topics so far. Um, the last one I have on the list, and I can't really show this unfortunately because I didn't prepare well enough to be perfectly honest. Um,
We're just vibing.
yeah, but I try to ignore as many Facebook ads as I can, or
Oh,
just
I'm so
ads on
excited for
social
this.
media in general. But for a long time, there have been a lot of really fucking weird ads for stuff. And it gets to the point where I'm looking at an ad and I'm like, do you want people to not buy your product? Because that's what it looks like to me, is that you just don't want people to indulge in this product at all. Um, one of the more infamous ones that's come out is something called Replica. And this is Replica spelled with a
Mm,
K.
I may have seen this.
Yeah. So what Replica is marketed as is sort of an AI friend slash girlfriend. And if that premise alone didn't make you cringe, what will make you cringe is some of the ads that exist for Replica. I'm actually going to Google this right now and see if I can find one of these ads. I just brought up my whole browser in a different window. That was professional streaming moment number one for the night.
I turned into a browser.
Yes. So let's see if we can find these. Let me just look for replica ad.
So I've discovered that the Y chromosomes, your ad landscape is totally different than mine, and you guys get the most bizarre ads for things.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable ads. The only reason I know what replica is because of JB. He gets harassed by ads for like ball cream and like fake girlfriends and adult games and like furry adult games and like all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's a wild west for y'all.
That's playing audio
I
effect.
don't get those.
Okay, so the ad I found didn't really sell it, and I can't find the ads I'm looking for, unfortunately. But one of the things that's really weird about this that is giving you this, the thing is what you have to understand, Chris, is I'm not actively searching for these things.
No.
Facebook just pushes, social media in general just pushes a lot of ads to the forefront because it's all about making that money at the end of the day. And so whoever ends up being the highest bidder on these platforms for ad space, it's kind of like newspapers, right? You spend more money on a newspaper ad, you get the biggest ad on the ad page, right? Or maybe even you get your ad put closer to the front page because of it. Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all work the same way. Who's ever willing to shell out the most money is going to have those ads pushed at you. Um, and Kimono's right. Like between like just even cis men and cis women, we get totally different ad spaces pushed at us.
Yeah. My tinfoil hat theory is that once the internet finds out, once the internet thinks you're a straight male, you just
Mm-hmm.
get flooded with the most base level ads that
Mm-hmm.
could exist. Yeah.
Um,
You gotta trick it into thinking you gotta trick it out of thinking you're a male. It's rough for y'all.
well, so I mean, I found these ads, and it's the typical sort of appealing to lonely guys kind of thing, where it's like, oh, you can talk to this AI chatbot and level her up. And one of the creepier things is like, oh, you get her to a certain level, and she'll send you NSFW pics of herself. um,
Okay, so confession time. Confession time. I've played Mystic Messenger. I know, I know. It was interesting until they started asking for money. But there was like a similar thing where it was like they would send you selfies of themselves or like
mhm.
you could get voicemails, which looking back, that was creepy.
Yeah.
I didn't play it for long, but when the hype came out, I was like, I have to see what this is about.
Mm.
So I too have had a virtual boyfriend.
Well, then there's some even weirder ads out there where this, I guess for like a better term, this social media sort of influencer girl that nobody knows where she came from. She kind of popped out of nowhere just doing these ads. It's like doing like TikTok style ads for Replica. And they're like
Yeah.
very, I don't know, they're just like very snarky in tone where it's like, oh, well, I have like an AI best friend and you don't. Um, which I don't think they realize how off putting that kind of stuff is. I mean, I don't think anyone goes out in public and brags to other people like, yeah, I installed this app and I have a virtual best friend now.
I have to look this up.
I think you would get better play if you honestly went out and said like, I have a top level Neopet.
Hey,
But
oh no, I should not have Googled this.
you
Ah,
shouldn't
the
have.
floodgates have opened
Welcome to the rabbit
on
hole.
me. Oh wow, there's texting. Wow, goodness.
hmm Oh,
Oh, talk to. Oh, this literally says talk to your fantasy waifu.
oh boy. Well, there we go. Talk
They
too
were like, we're not
fast.
even gonna pretend we're not targeting you nerds.
Oh god. And I wish I could remember the name of the company. I've forgotten it entirely because this ad just came across my feed one day. But there's a service in which you can hire a quote unquote gamer girl to play games with you.
Wait, is she real or
She's
no?
real, like these are supposedly real girls. But like you can like invite them to like a Discord chat and play games with them apparently. Like and the ad was very much like it was the e-girl like uwu girl style is what they were showing off. Like it's clearly marketed to a very specific audience. Um
I was gonna say that's not a bad racket for the girl. You just gotta play games with somebody. Yeah, I could do that.
yeah, I mean you got to play games with somebody, but then there's also that weird sort of parasocial thing going on where it's like,
Well, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
some
there are consequences.
the Discord admin stereotype is going to attach himself to one of these girls and like try to find out where she lives. um,
That is a very interesting like sort of semi-dystopian
hmm.
thing to come out of technology. Just like deep fakes. I am deeply disturbed by deep fakes.
No, deepfakes are just awful. Um, it's really weird because I did have a discussion in someone else's Twitch channel a while ago about things like AI art because they're like a
Mhm.
professional digital artist. Um, and one of the points that I made up about AI is that in its current form, AI can only get so good that it's just making a one-to-one reproduction of something else. It can't evolve past that point. And so when you get into things like deepfaking has been used in a lot of things that we consider legitimate uses of deepfake technology, like movies where they're going to de-age a character or something like that. Um, but then it's also been used in more nefarious ways, like revenge porn.
Mhm. It's always uncanny valley for me.
hmm Well, it's always going to be because the AI just doesn't have the skills. I mean, AI doesn't know what human bones and muscles are. Like it it
True.
can't mimic that kind of stuff. You could honestly take someone who just does like 3D artwork and probably make a better deep fake than AI could. Like and yes, you do get weird fingers and teeth out of this stuff too. Sometimes you get no fingers at all and sometimes you get like 20 fingers on a single hand. Um AI doesn't know how to count fingers apparently still. Um,
Well, drawing hands is always the hardest,
yes,
even for computers.
but one of the weirdest AI ads, and this goes back a long, long time ago. I remember a game came out for free on Xbox Live. It was like a games with gold thing. Um, it was this like sci-fi sort of like space flight shooter thing. I forget the name of it. Then I remember seeing a Facebook ad for an app game, and the footage they used in the Facebook ad was directly ripped from that game on Xbox. It wasn't even like trying to hide the fact either. And people in the comments were like, "Hey, this game is on Xbox and here's what it's called and you guys are just taking footage from that game and calling it your own thing." And what's weird is the same thing even happens with like legitimate app-based games is
What?
you'll look at like an ad for a video game or an ad for like an app-based game on something like Facebook or even YouTube sometimes. And the game you end up playing is entirely different from what they're showing you in that
Oh my
ad.
God, I hate that. There's so many stupid puzzle games like that
hmm I
where
think,
it's like you're gonna be doing a whole open world type thing.
well, one of the biggest ones, and the reason why this is so big is the amount of money this company gives out to people who will just read a script for a sponsorship. Everyone's heard of this, and thank God we are not sponsored by them. Raid Shadow Legends.
Yay! Raid Shadow Legends! Oh my God.
So, I found this out from a YouTuber who made a whole video on how he was approached by the company that makes Raid Shadow Legends and how they were trying to get him to sponsor the game. They were giving him something ridiculous, like $400 a month for ad reads. Um, we got it all for turn it down. If it's from Raid, turn it down, Chris.
Oh my god.
But they like give you a script that you kind of have to stick to. Like there's no deviation from that script that's allowed. And this is because the ads for Raid Shadow Legends are really trying to hide what the game is. And so I watched someone's gameplay footage of this because he's talking about it, how he downloaded the game, and how he's approached for ads for the game and stuff like that. It is the typical gotcha game, really. It's a marketplace attached to something that's game-like, more or less.
You know what? You're right. I've never seen anyone actually play Raid Shadow Legends. I've just heard people
Mm-hmm.
screaming about it.
Yes, and so like the things they boast about in the ads is oh well it's like console quality graphics and you get all these heroes and champions and you've got this RPG gameplay that's super in depth and stuff like that. JB downloaded. um, but here's the funny part about the game is you get into the game and you are immediately bombarded with splash screens asking you more or less to spend money. Right? It's
Yeah,
like buy our currency, spend money.
I
Um,
can see that.
and then you get into the gameplay and you realize like there's an energy bar, so you can only do so many things per day unless you buy more currency to buy more energy to keep playing the game. I think the most egregious offense about this game is that it's honestly not really a game. It has an autoplay feature in it like an idle game does. The game will literally play itself as a background app on your phone without you ever having to do anything in it.
I have I've played very shortly. I've played games like that.
Mm-hmm. And there are some games, of course, where that can be fun, but for a game that's boasting itself as having all this great gameplay and these great features and stuff like that, like Raid is
Oh,
constantly trying to do, it's like,
that's like
well,
getting stick figures.
yeah, it's like, wait a minute, there's an autoplay feature in this. So the goal of the game really is just to get you to spend money to unlock more characters. And I played a game like that. I even played it on the stream. A lot of people are familiar with Genshin Impact. Um,
Yeah, waifu simulator.
yes, but yes, what I called Waifu Simulator was Honkai Impact Third, the game they released before Genshin Impact came out. And I call it Waifu Simulator because the goal of that game really is to get me to spend a ridiculous amount of money unlocking more or less what are costumes and different move sets for new characters or for old characters that are already in the game. Um, and I say this embarrassingly, I am ashamed of this fact. I used to spend thousands of dollars on this game.
Oh, it really was a waifu simulator.
Yes.
On clothes?
Well, to its credit,
Fashionista.
I mean, to its credit, when you get the clothes for the characters, they're like whole outfits for these characters. That basically transforms them into a whole new character in the game. Like they get a whole different move set, they get a whole different set of skills, all that stuff like that. They don't play the way the last one did. That being said, you are spending thousands of dollars to unlock this stuff because it's all hidden behind like gotcha loot boxes, more or less. And you have to do those rolls to unlock that stuff, or wait until that event comes back up again, which it almost never does for like years at a time. Um, I mean, that being said, this is more of a game than some other ones. It does have actual gameplay in it, and that isn't me just like doing sunken cost fallacy where it's like, oh, I spent all this money, so I have to say it's good. It really was like a good game, and a lot of people do talk about the gameplay in the communities. There are even a whole section of players of this game who literally, like a challenge of this game is just doing it free to play, spending absolutely no money on it, and doing as much as you can in the game.
Hey, that sounds better than me giving Kim Kardashian's dress up game money, which I've done. So, yes, I've justified spending money like in mobile games before.
Yes.
Ugh, and it felt so worth it at the time. And then I was like, and then it just turned into the same thing of like you have to wait for a day or two. It just gets longer and longer before you can do stuff, or you have to pay for it. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God. I don't even know how I downloaded that game.
Well, JB brings up a good point about these games, though, is he said it was boring as soon as you hit the difficulty wall, and I wasn't willing to pay to get stronger characters. And this is a thing, as someone who majored in game design in college and has a fucking degree in it, that honestly just infuriates the shit out of me. Because you're talking about a developer probably being told by someone to make an artificial difficulty wall in that game, which then forces you to spend money to get past it. And this even leaks over to like AAA titles. Um, a lot of Ubisoft games have this, for example, where it's like you play the game, but then we're gonna sell you like XP boost and level skips
No.
and better gun packs and stuff like that, so you can progress through the game that much faster. And it's like, well, then why am I even playing your game if I can just spend money to basically get to the end?
True.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But
It's for the people who that digs their hamster wheel
mm-hmm.
of being able to skip stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear Assassin's Creed Vikings was like that. So the Assassin's Creed Valhalla was kind of like that. And Ubisoft has caught some heat for this in the past. They, I believe in Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was a good game for me while it lasted. They tried to push NFTs through the in-game marketplace,
Ew.
where it's like you could buy like a piece of cosmetic gear that you exclusively owned and no one else could touch it. But it's also like that NFT then holds no value after the game service is shut down. So, like, why bother buying it? And a lot of games do this. I mean, Call of Duty has done this. Destiny has even done this. Final Fantasy 14 even does it in a way where it's like you want to spend money to get that unique piece of gear, that cosmetic item, because it's how you show off in that world. It held no value from the moment you bought it. Exactly. Go buy Monkey JPEG. But but yeah, I mean, a lot of games do this where they end up being marketplaces attached to games, and that kind of segues into our next topic here, which is um, shit, I'm blanking on this. Hang on.
It's like, what was it?
What did I put in the chat here? Oh god, I'm lost now.
You lost your page on the Choose Your Own Adventure.
Yes. Oh, that's because I didn't fucking write it down, did I? Yep, that's what happens in my brain is I didn't write something down and now I've completely forgotten what it was about.
No.
um oh, okay, now I'm remembering because I told myself I forgot. So, how do I put this so that way it makes sense? Um oh, well, there's an easy way to put this then. So, we've gotten some news of a lot of games that were quote unquote live services just completely shutting down. And it's not within like a year or 2 years or 3 years. It's like within a couple months. These games have just stopped their services. And a lot of this right now is attributed to Square Enix. So, do you remember Marvel Avengers coming out as a video game?
Vaguely.
Vaguely, right? A lot of people, I guess, remember it vaguely because it just didn't look like a good game when it was first announced. But and it's really not a good game. But Marvel Avengers was a live service video game. It was meant to be this
Huh.
perpetual, ongoing thing where they added more characters, um, and basically the way you got those characters was by spending money on them. That being said, Square Enix is ready to shutter the service that is the Marvel Avengers video game. They're just closing it down. Took them like 6 months to make that decision. Game's just gone. Period. Yeah, they've done this with other games.
Like they're just gonna delete it
Yeah,
from Earth?
it's not necessarily to be deleted, but when you go to play it, you will not be able to play this game online. You will not be able to access the marketplace. The game will functionally be dead. So,
Oh wow.
yep, a lot of the cosmetic stuff that they put in the game that you had to pay money for, they're now just giving away for free. Um,
No, not the everything must go sale.
yeah. So it's come to that point. Square Enix did this with a couple other games recently too. One which is not so popular was a game called Babylon's Fall. Babylon's Fall was actually developed by Platinum Games, the makers of stuff like Bayonetta. So they make this game called Babylon's Fall. It was sort of this dungeon crawler experience, but it's not a good game because again, it is a game with a marketplace kind of stuck onto it that was supposed to be a live service, it's supposed to be perpetual and ongoing, forever and ever and ever. They're closing that game down. Again, that game existed for like a matter of months before Square Enix decided to shut it down. And then one of kind of the biggest offenses to me. They're shutting down Chocobo GP. So Chocobo
Oh,
GP was the karting game that came out last year, and it is a good karting game. Like, no lie there, it's a good karting game. But it had all this microtransaction shit attached to it. It had like a battle pass stuck onto it and all this stuff that you had to spend money on. And they're just shuttering the game. No more online play, nothing for
oh
Chocobo GP.
wow.
Um, so I'm curious to know, why do you? I have my own take on this. Why do you think they're shutting down all these games?
I was literally about to ask you. I was like, I don't understand. Are they making room for something? Are they too focused on the big Final Fantasy games? Like, I don't understand. If there's because I feel like if there's a base playing the game,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why you would close. People, I could still jump into Diablo 2
Yep.
and play that.
I
People are
played it
still
not that
in
long
there.
ago. I mean, I played Diablo 2 not that long ago, and it's still a great game.
It
Um,
is. Yeah, and like Diablo 3. Yeah, it's just crazy.
but
I don't understand that.
you know
What
what
what do you think
Diablo?
it is?
Well, I'll tell you. But you know what Diablo 2 doesn't have in it? It doesn't
What?
have microtransactions. Doesn't have a marketplace where you go to spend a bunch of real
That's
money on
true. You can just
stuff.
hop in and play.
It
That's
doesn't have
very
some
true.
crazy battle pass in it or anything like that where you get more unlockables as you play. It's just a game that you can play online with people, right? Versus what these games were made for, what live services are really made for. We can go back to games like Destiny. Destiny 2 is a live service game. It's meant to be this perpetual ongoing thing where they keep releasing content for it. World of Warcraft is even kind of like this. But what Square Enix made these games for is to make money. That's really
Mm,
it.
yeah.
And so the idea was to make a game that lasted forever so you could get people to spend more money on more stuff from a marketplace. And so because they couldn't make all the money on it, and I do mean all the money. I don't mean some of the money. I don't mean the game just does well and has a good player base that sticks with the game. They want this game to make all of the money. And if
Mm,
it doesn't make all the money, they just make the decision to close it down. Square Enix has been involved in a lot of crazy stuff like pay to earn schemes and NFT stuff um, lately. Uh,
disappointing.
it's highly disappointing. I mean, this is a company that's responsible for Final Fantasy, the what
Yeah.
probably, if not one of the best selling video game franchise of all time. um, and now they're just kind of ruining their reputation. They've become, as one of my favorite gaming content creators, Jim Stephanie Sterling, puts it, the EA of Japan. All of their games are made specifically for that purpose, is to make a ton of money, and this goes back way, way back to when they had control of the Tomb Raider franchise. When Tomb Raider started coming out as reboots, which are really good games, but they were upset when they came out with Tomb Raider because they set this sales goal for themselves of it needs to sell X million amount of copies, right? And they sold something like 6 million copies of the first Tomb Raider, like launch. That was their figure. But the executives of Square Enix were disappointed that they sold that many copies because they wanted to sell more. And so they considered the Tomb Raider reboot a failure because they didn't hit that sales target they were looking for. And to me, that's insane. You have to consider you're selling something $60 a pop and you sell 6 million copies of it.
Yeah.
Like, not even talking about profit margins there, that is $360 million of revenue that
Yeah,
you've
but it's
made
not
at launch.
5.
But you've made that
It's
at
not an A
launch.
plus.
Yeah. I mean, but you make that money at launch. It's not like you've run out of games to sell now. People are going to continue to buy that game.
They were like, "Well, shelve it. It's over."
Pretty much. And it's awful that game companies now think this way because let's be honest, gaming blew up. It is a multi-billion dollar industry now. It
Hmm.
hires, it's responsible for creating and creating a lot of jobs and then firing a lot of people for no real good reason. But it's humongous. It's an industry in and of itself, and it's a major part of the inner workings of the economy now. Um, and this has forced people in the entertainment industry outside of video games to recognize video games as a power player in that perspective, and that's why we're getting adaptations like we talked about earlier of a lot of video game properties. But again, this just kind of sucks because it's like you
Mm,
have a potential to make a really good game now, but if a publisher isn't satisfied with how much money that game is going to make, that game's probably not going to be around for very long anymore. Because
yeah.
everyone is doing this. Everyone's trying to turn a game into a live service. And it sucks because, like, I like Destiny 2, but I don't want to play Destiny 2 forever. Like,
I know people who could, but no, I can't either.
I mean, at the same time, even if I was like a long time Destiny 2 player, it's like, but there are other games I want to play and enjoy, and Destiny 2 is like fighting for my attention all the fucking time. Like,
Mhm.
this even happens in MMOs. No joke. When I first started playing World of Warcraft way back in the day when it came out, I was in a guild with a guy who was like 40 years old at the time, whose wife and kids left him because he played too much WoW.
Oh my gosh. When honestly though, when WoW first came out, it was like that. That was the reputation was that you were playing all the time. You
Hmm.
weren't eating, you weren't sleeping. You were
Well,
just raiding.
I mean, that's where the conversation around like video game addiction really took off in the media. It was like when World of Warcraft came out, and people were spending like 40-hour weeks just playing World of Warcraft. And
Interesting.
I mean, we got the whole like hilarious South Park episode about them playing WoW, and like Cartman won't even get up to use the bathroom while he's playing World of Warcraft. um, so it's strange to me that a lot of games I don't know. Have you played any games that are like that where they're just constantly? I mean, for me, it feels like these games try to turn themselves into full-time jobs. Have you had that experience with anything you've played?
Mm, My attention span prevents me from doing that. I have played Destiny though. I would
Mm-hmm.
say probably the closest like game like that that I was super into really for a really long time was probably Dead by Daylight because it's a constant like they're constantly updating, they're constantly adding things, and it's easy to play that nonstop. My friends and I grinded that game really
Mm-hmm.
hard for months and months and months. And then we all stopped playing and we never we couldn't go back. It was like we were playing that game way too much. Like
I,
looking back, I was like, yeah, we were putting in hours in that game. But like I like JB plays a lot of Final Fantasy and he tells me about the dungeons that are 6 hours and stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
I don't have the stamina. Not anymore.
I mean, that's the way Dungeons and Raids used to be in World of Warcraft. If you were back in like Vanilla WoW where they were doing 40-man raids, like that was a 6-hour commitment at
That sounds
least.
nuts. I don't, yeah, I need proof. I need proof. Cause yeah, John talks about like 60-man like dungeons and like
Mm-hmm.
the type of fight where everybody has to be on the same page at the same time or you have to start all over.
Oh yeah.
What? No.
I think Final Fantasy 14 is now famous for having some of the most brutal raids in the fucking game. Yeah, the fight is only 12 minutes. Beating the fight takes hours. Exactly. It's. I mean, you have to consider like what it takes to get like 40 or even 60 nerds together to sit down and make a commitment to like
True.
to sit down and say, "Hey guys, we're gonna go and play this video game, which earns us nothing in real life, by the way, for 6 hours straight to accomplish one goal."
An invisible goal. We don't even get
Yes.
gold at the end.
Like, and the funny thing about like WoW raids is these people would run them like week after week after week because it's like, oh, one person gets the gear they need from the raid, but nobody else did. So now we have to go back and do it again. And then the amount of times that you wipe because someone made a mistake, the healer wasn't on top of things, the tank dropped aggro, the DPS isn't doing enough damage to the boss or whatever like that. Like, you're talking about running this dungeon over and over and over again, just trying to make sure the formula finally comes together and you beat that one thing. And it's like, okay, well, we beat the boss here, and now there's the stronger boss with crazier mechanics in the next room that we have to fight. I mean, even in Destiny raids, it was like this. Like, it was difficult for me to just get enough people together to go do a Destiny raid. And then knowing that, like, oh, well, we wipe on this part of the raid, and it's not like, oh, we get a checkpoint back to, like, where we started this event. We just get a checkpoint back to the beginning of the fucking raid was just brutal.
Yeah,
It's,
that's a very interesting like social experience, I guess, because it's like you're all experiencing so many emotions and you can't really be well, I guess you could get in fights, but you can't get that mad at each other because you all have to
mm-mm.
work together.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is a lot of the games have mechanics built in where it's like, if you don't have that exact number of people for the raid, you just aren't allowed to fucking do it. And so,
Wow. They were
if
like,
you,
get more friends, nerd.
yes, but it's like there have been instances where people have gone in with like 40-man parties in Vanilla WoW ready for a raid, and one person's like, "Oh, I have an emergency come up and I can't do it," or like two people just get really pissed off at each other and someone just quits.
No! Oh my gosh.
Yep.
No!
I mean, disconnects back in the age of DSL were the fucking worst. If someone disconnected, there goes your fucking raid. like, like that was just the way those games played, and some of them continue to play that way. I remember.
With that level of investment, I can see how you could get super sucked into it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's investment for its sake. I understand like the point of like wanting to enjoy that content, but for me, it's the kind of brutal grind that I'm just not into. Like, I do not want to spend all that
Mhm.
time trying to accomplish a goal that I may achieve at the end of the day. um, if I play video games to kind of escape from that entirely.
Yeah.
um, I know that my Animal Crossing island is basically a landfill at this point, but
I haven't given up on terraforming. Every night I fall asleep trying to terraform, and then I have to time skip back. I've been playing the same day for like a month.
mhm.
I really want to get this waterfall right. But yes, I too have taken the like, I just want to enjoy this. I don't want to fight the game
Yeah,
type of play.
yeah. I mean, it's different strokes for different folks, is all I can say.
Oh
um,
yeah, my friend Liz, they love playing games just to be upset. They get out their like rage energy through games, and it's like at the end of the night they're like, that was horrible. I'm going to do it tomorrow.
I do that with a lot of the survival horror stuff that I play. Um, I think I wish I had clipped parts of it, but one of our funniest streams of all time, Chris and I got together to play like Phasmophobia because I just had never played it before. There was a lot of me shouting at the ghost to fight me. Well, and then the ghost did kill
watching
me.
watching you guys play Poppy's Playtime was hilarious.
Oh yes. Poppy's Playtime. I mean, the game is not so much scary for me as it just gives me an incredible amount of anxiety because of how quickly you have to do certain things to
Very stressful. Very stressful.
But I don't know. I think we've ran through all the topics so far. We've been talking for 2 straight hours at this point, almost. We're at like 140. Um, so let me ask you this: was there anything you wanted to bring up? Anything interesting you wanted to talk about while we're here?
I literally just want to complain really quickly about AMC and their stupid decision. When I posted it in the Discord, I called it dumb. I can't remember what I called it, and then I decided to clarify. But no, I'm going to loop back around. It was just stupid. Their stupid decision to change their pricing based on where you sit in the movie theater. I think it's egregious. I can't believe that they like announced it and they were like, this is going into effect tomorrow, by the way. I'm pretty sure. It was like such a fast turnaround time. But I looked at the chart. So it's basically if you're in the middle, the prime seats, quote unquote, if you're in the middle, not too close to the screen, you're going to pay more. If you're off to the sides or way in the front, you're going to pay less.
Gotcha.
Why? Explain to me. Chris, where are you?
I don't know. This seems like
Mr. Movie Phone, explain this.
This sounds like a Ticketmaster situation.
Yeah, it does. Like, what are it does? I just don't understand.
I mean, I don't get it either because I think sort of the unwritten rule of going to the movie theater is like no matter where you sit. First of all, the thing that annoyed me was like the reserved seating to begin with, where like you want to go to a movie and the way it used to work was just first come first serve. You get to the movie early, you get a good seat. You don't get to the movie early,
Yeah.
you just settle with a shitty seat. But everyone's paying the same price because you're all seeing the same movie at the end of the day, right? Um, the way that movie seating is arranged is unless you're like dead center front of the screen, it shouldn't necessarily impact your movie going experience that much. Um, but that's the way it always worked, and then they moved to reserve seating for a lot of theaters, which I understand during things like the pandemic that was maybe necessary to do, but it also existed long before the pandemic, and I can't even say after the pandemic because it's still ongoing, but it exists now. um,
Yes.
and then it exists in this worse form that AMC has come up with, where it's like, we're going to treat it like you were sitting in a ball stadium where it's like, oh, well, if you sit in the nosebleeds, of course you're not going to pay enough money or pay a ton of money. But if you sit in those quote unquote prime seats, like you said, well, then you got to fork over the cash.
Yeah,
Um,
theaters aren't big enough to justify, like you said, one
mhm,
seat being a better experience than the other because the
mhm,
screen is in front of everybody. It's
yeah,
just,
and I mean, there's kind of a weird accessibility problem built into that too, because like I'm nearsighted, almost extremely so at this point, and the issue for me is wearing glasses in a movie theater. All that light that beams off the screen
mm,
gets refracted through my fucking glasses and basically blinds the shit out of me. Um, but if I take my glasses off and I'm sitting far back enough, all the detail on that screen is just obscured. Um, and it sucks to watch movies that way. And so like me going to an AMC theater and having to fight to get one of those prime seats and then realizing that I've got to pay more money for it is like I'm being penalized because I can't fucking see.
yeah, that's a good point. But
and
what if what if you physically can't be closer or farther away? They didn't think this through. I mean, what company does? But
no, I think the problem is they put, like most companies do, profit before everything else. And I'm sure someone in a meeting somewhere was like, well, maybe we should consider this. And the person who's actually going to pocket that money in profits is like, well, fuck you, get out. um, I need my big yacht that fits a smaller yacht inside of it. And this is the only way I can get it. But yeah, I mean there is kind of an overarching accessibility question there for a lot of people. Um, and it sucks to see them kind of do this. I think the problem that movie theaters have in general is they're going the way of the dinosaur because everything's available through streaming and digital media now.
yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, why shoot yourself in the foot like that? It's
Hmm.
been so hard to get people to come back to the movies.
Yeah.
On top of in the past like year or two, we haven't had super great movies to go to in the first place. And then you want us to pay more? Yeah, it's just when popcorn is $45, it's just egregious.
If I ever eat a $45 bucket of popcorn, that popcorn better be the best tasting thing I've ever put in my mouth.
Can I fly when I
Like,
eat it?
yes, it needs to give me superpowers. It needs to do my fucking taxes for me. That's what that popcorn needs to accomplish. But I mean, yeah, I mean everything's going up in price. We understand that that's just the way the economy is moving right now. I won't get into all the reasons why it's moving that way, but um, I think that if movie theaters really want to sort of get that audience back and get people coming back, do what they used to do. Make those big blockbuster primetime movies less about just going to the theater to see a movie and make it an event at the movie theater. Make it,
That's true.
make it a big show. Do those marketing photos showing people dressing up in their costumes to go to the movies and stuff like that, right? Do, the special popcorn buckets and all that shit that people can buy, Have collector's items for sale or on display somewhere. Show off that movie and make it that kind of event to bring the community together at the movie theater. Um, and it's worked for movie theaters in the past. I don't see why it wouldn't work today. I
I
think
think
people
that,
enjoyed
yeah,
that.
that also, I think, speaks to the larger, like you said before, point of movies now, like those cash grab games. It's kind of like the whole, I'm just gonna use respect because some movies are just disrespectful. Just the whole concept of like you said, going to the movies, making it a more of an event. All of that is just kind of out the window.
Oh yeah. Well, again, I mean, at the end of the day, we understand that movies are a product. They're a commodity. They exist to make people a ridiculous amount of money.
But there
Um,
are too.
yes, but
They
they
used
are
to be.
they are art. That's just the system that we have to live in. Is everything that is art eventually has to become a commodity, or else the art really can't survive on its own, um, or at least can't hit a big enough audience to really keep going. Because let's face it, art materials, even things like paintbrushes. I went over this entirely on Monday about how much you can spend on just like a paintbrush for painting minis.
Hmm.
um, it isn't free at the end of the day. Like you have to spend money on that. Um, and it sucks that we exist in that world, but we have to kind of deal with it as it comes. But again, everything's getting more expensive, and so and it's not necessarily a bad thing that certain things are getting more expensive. I think it's right for people in entertainment industries to do things like unionize and demand that they get fair pay for the work they produce. At the same time, I think a producer who's making millions of dollars on a film can sacrifice a little bit of that paycheck to put back into the pot.
Hello. Hello. It's like, why do I have to pay more for my seat
Hmm.
when, yeah, the co-producer's co-producer who's never seen the movie is making all this money.
Oh yeah. Well, there are a lot of bullshit jobs out there, and that's actually the title of a book you can go pick up called Bullshit Jobs. I really recommend you read it if you get a chance.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Um,
Looking this up right now.
but there's a lot of bullshit jobs out there, basically do nothing jobs, like the co-producer of a co-producer of a co-producer who's an assistant whose job is to honestly run around and grab coffee for people.
Hmm.
um, like, sure, you're expending some labor there, but you're also getting paid a whole lot more than, say, you know, the cameraman who worked on that
Yeah, a
movie,
fucking grip. Somebody
or
who's holding a $1,000 camera or boom equipment. Yeah.
Mhm. And that's honestly, I mean, this even happens in game development where sometimes there are game designers who sit down and they're working on all this material for a game. The equipment they use to make that game is sometimes worth more than the paycheck they receive at the end of that game being launched. And that's sad to say, is like the company values a computer or a piece of software or a piece of
Yeah.
hardware more than it values you as a creator, as someone who actually made that game happen or made that movie happen. With books, it's a little bit different because, of course, you have publishing houses and you have authors, but it's usually one person or just a few people working on that book. 'Cause it's like, okay, you have an author, you have a proofreader, you have an editor, and you have a publisher. Like, that's what it takes to get a book done. Um, Whereas a video game, like you've got concept artists, you've got line artists, you've got colors, you've got uh, final proofreading, you've got writers, you've got people who make music and scores for video games, you've got 3D artists and animators, programmers, all these people working together to make this product happen. And then they get paid like pennies on the dollar for their work.
Yeah. And no recognition.
Yes, and also someone like Bobby Kotick can go home and drive around his fucking Audi R8 all day long. Like, and it's a terrible situation to be in. But I mean, I think the point that's being missed is we do, of course, appreciate the work that these people put out. We wouldn't be here if not for their work to begin with. Um, we
Very
just want them
true.
to get a better cut of the pie, really. But yeah, I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything. Was there any little tidbits you had to add?
No, I think we're no, I literally just wanted to complain about that when you When you were like, if there's anything else you want to discuss, I was like, yes, this. I just need a solid 5 minutes because this is bullshit.
All right. Well, since we're kind of wrapping up here, we're already 2 hours in officially now. Well, 10 minutes under that. We made it without going a full 2 hours. Um, let's do this. Everyone knows who I am, knows who Spacetime Taco is right now. So I'm gonna pass it over to you. Plug your socials, get your name out there to our audience.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at KimonoJones, just like the at the bottom of my little square. However, on Twitter, I am Kimono_Jones. I would like to street fight the person that stole my name, um, but I cannot endorse those tweets.
All right, we're doing it. Our next stream is gonna be a promo. We're gonna get this fight going.
Yeah.
I don't know what class you in, welterweight, like.
Yes. Your celebrity death match for the title of my Twitter name.
All right. Well, I do thank you for being here to plug our own stuff, of course, as we always do. We thank everybody who did watch, everybody who will watch. You can find us everywhere, including with the addition of KimonoJones now at Spacetime Taco. If you want to follow her, of course, she plugged her socials. Find her at KimonoJones on Instagram and Kimono_Jones on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram at a little teapot where I do a lot of my mini painting stuff. You can find me on Twitter, or actually a little teapot 89. I should specify
Instagram.
that.
I was so excited you got an Instagram.
Yes. We do thank everybody for joining, and we wish you all a good night.
Good night.